In today's world, the word focus has become popular, almost fashionable. People speak of focusing on goals, ambitions, targets, and even on what others are doing. But the most crucial aspect, the most fundamental direction for our focus is often ignored, and that is the inner dimension. Inner focus is not a luxury. It is the very foundation of clarity, of stability, of real intelligence. If you try to look at life without understanding the mechanism of your own body, your own mind, your own energies, you are merely collecting information, not insight. There is a big difference between knowledge and clarity. Knowledge can be borrowed. Clarity has to arise from within. You cannot Google your way into inner stillness. You cannot outsource the journey inward. It demands your attention, your presence. Now, when we say focus on yourself, it is not about being selfish. It is not about becoming self-centered in the way the world understands the term. It means turning your gaze inward, not to get lost in thoughts or emotions, but to observe the source of these thoughts and emotions. Where do they come from? Why do certain patterns repeat in your life? Why do you react in a particular way? Why do small things disturb your peace? These questions cannot be answered by looking outside. If your focus is always on how the world should be, you will constantly live in friction, because the world will not bend to your desires. It will not change to suit your expectations. The only person who can be shaped, evolved, elevated is you. But this inner focus requires a kind of discipline, not the rigid military type of discipline, but the discipline of attention, the discipline of presence. Most people are living their lives on autopilot. Their focus jumps from screen to screen, opinion to opinion, drama to drama, so it's no surprise that confusion becomes a natural state. To have clarity, you must learn to sit with yourself, not distracted, not entertained, just fully aware. Clarity is not a product of thinking harder. It is the result of seeing clearly. And to see clearly, your mind has to become still. Imagine a muddy pond. If you keep stirring it, you will never see the bottom. But if you let it settle, clarity emerges. The same is true for the inner world. If you're constantly reacting, judging, comparing, your inner space remains disturbed. Focus on yourself means allowing that space to settle. This doesn't mean you withdraw from life or become inactive. On the contrary, when your inner focus sharpens, your outer actions become far more effective. You are no longer running on impulses. You are moving with awareness. You don't waste energy trying to control the uncontrollable. You begin to respond rather than react. But people often ask, if I focus only on myself, what about my responsibilities? What about the world? Understand this. If you are a mess inside, you will spread mess wherever you go. But if you are clear, calm, centered, your very presence becomes a contribution. You don't have to do anything dramatic. Just being who you are, when you are truly focused inward, is powerful. Also, when you begin to focus on yourself, you realize how little you truly know yourself. You may know your name, your background, your education, but these are external labels. The real you is not the identity you wear for the world. It is something far subtler, something that can only be known through direct experience, through stillness, through focused attention. This journey inward also reveals your blind spots. You start noticing how much of your behavior is simply unconscious repetition, how much of your stress is self-created, how many of your problems are not because of what's happening but how you are responding to what's happening. Inner focus gives you this mirror. It doesn't flatter you, it doesn't lie, but it shows you the truth. And that truth sets the foundation for real clarity. When you are inwardly focused, life no longer feels like a struggle. It becomes a flow. You move not by effort but by alignment. You act not from compulsion but from choice. And this shift is not something theoretical. It is very practical, very tangible. You can feel it in how you breathe, how you speak, how you walk, how you carry yourself. This is why the ancient sages always emphasized going inward before going outward. Because unless you know your own instrument, your body, your mind, your energies, silence is often misunderstood. People think silence means not speaking, being quiet, keeping your mouth shut. But that is only the surface. True silence is not about the absence of sound. It is about the presence of awareness. You can sit in a noisy marketplace and still be silent. You can be alone in the forest and still be full of noise. Because silence is not a condition outside. It is a certain quality of being. And we say silence is full of awareness. It means that in the absence of mental chatter, something deeper begins to shine through. Most people are not really living life, they are living their thoughts, their memories, their projections, their opinions. Their entire experience is filtered through an endless commentary running in the mind. But silence is the space where that commentary falls away. And when that happens, you don't become less, you become more. There is a kind of richness in silence that words can never capture. It is not dull, it is not empty, it is not lifeless. It is alive, vibrant, potent. It is in silence that you can actually meet life directly. You are not interpreting, comparing, analyzing. You are simply there, fully present. That presence is awareness, and that awareness is the door to everything real. In modern life, we are surrounded by noise, not just external noise, horns, phones, traffic, people, but more dangerously, internal noise. The mind is constantly spinning stories. What will happen tomorrow? What did they mean by that? Am I good enough? Did I do the right thing? This running monologue has become so normal that people forget there is another way to live. They think this constant thinking is intelligence, but it is not. Intelligence blooms when the noise stops. In silence, there is space for intelligence to flower. There is space for insight to arise. There is space for truth to be seen. That's why all great realizations, all deep wisdom come from silence, not from loud debates or shouting matches. When you are silent, truly silent, you begin to perceive things more sharply. A bird's song becomes music. A breeze on your skin becomes poetry. Someone's pain becomes your own. Silence is what makes you sensitive to life. And it is only when you become sensitive that you become wise. Insensitivity is not strength, it is blindness. But most people have numbed themselves because the noise is too much. They think silence is scary because the moment they try to be silent, all their inner garbage comes up. The fears, the guilt, the shame, the suppressed emotions all rise to the surface. So they run back to distractions. They drown themselves in entertainment, in activity, in talking, in doing, anything but being. But if you can sit through that initial discomfort, you'll find something extraordinary. You will realize that you are not your thoughts, you are the one who is aware of them. You are not your emotions, you are the space in which they arise and fall. That space is silence, that space is awareness, and in that space there is immense freedom. You don't need to control everything. You don't need to have all the answers. You don't need to prove yourself. You simply need to be alert, present, and silent. And in that state, life reveals itself to you. You begin to see the patterns in your behavior. You notice how certain triggers make you act in certain ways. You become aware of your conditioning, your beliefs, your assumptions. And slowly, that awareness begins to dissolve then. You don't have to fight with your mind. You just have to stop feeding it. Let it run out of fuel. That fuel is your identification with every thought. When you stop giving importance to every passing idea, the mind begins to settle on its own. It is like a snow globe. If you keep shaking it, it remains cloudy. But if you leave it alone, the flakes settle and you can see clearly through the glass. Silence is what allows that settling to happen. And once the mind settles, you begin to experience peace, not the peace that comes from solving problems, but the peace that comes from being untouched by them. You realize that the world can be chaotic, but you can remain centered. You realize that silence is not the absence of action, it is the foundation for right action. Because only when you are still can you see the whole picture. Only then can you respond wisely rather than react blindly. Self-transformation precedes world transformation. This is not just a philosophical idea, it is a fundamental truth of human experience. Everyone wants to change something outside of themselves. They want to fix the world, improve society, correct others, or bring justice to the system. But very few pause to ask whether they themselves are in the right state to bring about any meaningful change. Unless you have transformed the instrument through which you act, yourself, your actions, no matter how well intended, will carry the same confusion, the same distortions, the same limitations that exist within you. If the lens through which you see the world is cracked, what you see will be distorted. And if your mind, your emotions, your intentions are cluttered, then your contribution to the world, however noble it may seem, will also carry that same clutter. This is why all true change must begin within. Before you point fingers, before you speak of justice, before you demand change, first turn inward. Look at yourself. Are you clear? Are you balanced? Are you peaceful? Or are you merely reacting, driven by your own unresolved conflicts? There is a tendency in human beings to avoid facing their own inner turmoil by focusing on the outer world. It is easier to criticize a politician, blame a boss, or judge society than to sit quietly and face your own mind. But transformation is not about ease, it is about honesty. It takes real courage to look at your own anger, your own insecurities, your own fears, and to say, this needs to be transformed. The moment you begin this process, you are already more powerful than any revolution on the streets. Transforming yourself does not mean becoming perfect. It means becoming aware. When you are aware, you can catch yourself before you lash out in frustration. You can recognize when your ego is speaking instead of your intelligence. You can see the gap between your words and your actions. This awareness slowly begins to close that gap. You become more aligned. Your thoughts, your emotions, your actions begin to flow in harmony. This harmony is the basis for real influence in the world. A person who has not mastered himself cannot lead others. He may lead them into excitement, into noise, into temporary action, but not into wisdom. Only when you have created a certain balance within can your presence uplift others. You do not even have to speak much. Just your being becomes a force. Your silence becomes louder than noise. Your calmness becomes a mirror in which others can see themselves more clearly. The world has seen many revolutions, many reforms, many movements, and yet human suffering continues. Because most of these changes are surface level, systems change, but human minds remain the same. Greed remains, anger remains, insecurity remains. Unless these inner forces are addressed, nothing will fundamentally shift. This is why the ancient yogis and sages did not run to change the world. They worked on themselves first. They purified their vision, they mastered their energies, and then their presence alone changed thousands. You cannot pour clean water through a dirty pipe and expect purity. If your inner world is in chaos, your outer actions will reflect that. You may wear the mask of righteousness, but your energy will betray you. People may follow your words, but they will not feel your depth. They will not trust your essence. True leadership, true impact, comes not from charisma, but from clarity. And clarity is the result of inner transformation. Transformation is not about becoming someone else. It is about shedding all that is not you. The false identities, the borrowed beliefs, the emotional baggage, these are layers that life has placed upon you. When you begin to peel them away, what remains is your essence. And that essence is naturally wise, naturally compassionate, naturally powerful. There is no need to add anything. There is only a need to remove what blocks the light. Most people wait for the world to change before they are willing to be at peace. They say, once my circumstances improve, I will be happy. But the wise know it is the other way around. Once you find peace, your circumstances begin to shift. Your relationships improve, your work becomes more meaningful, your presence attracts harmony. Because the world is not separate from you, it is a reflection of you. You may think, but I'm just one person. How can I transform the world? The truth is, every great change in history started with one person who decided to go deeper. One person who refused to live unconsciously. One person who realized that changing themselves was the most revolutionary act of all. Reactions are noise. Observation is power. In daily life, most people function like a triggered system. Something happens and immediately there is a reaction. Emotional, verbal, physical. Someone says something you don't like and anger rises. A situation goes out of control and fear floods in. This is not conscious living. This is simply being pushed around by circumstances. It is like being a puppet whose strings are in everyone else's hands. A single comment, a piece of news, a social media post can disturb your peace, make you anxious, make you feel small or aggressive. This constant reacting creates inner chaos, and that chaos spills into every action. When you live in reaction, you lose your clarity. You are not acting out of understanding, you are acting out of habit. Old patterns take over. Past wounds dictate present behavior. And in that state, even if your intentions are good, your actions are clouded. They carry the residue of confusion. This is the noise of the mind, an endless storm of reactions. It may feel like life is happening fast and you have no time to think, but that's the illusion. The truth is, you always have a moment to pause. You always have the choice to observe before you act. Observation is not the same as overthinking. It is not analyzing every detail or becoming paralyzed by doubt. Observation means watching without judgment. without labeling, just noticing the way your breath moves, the tension in your body, the thoughts passing through your mind, the emotions rising and falling. You become the witness, not the reactor. And this witnessing creates space, a gap between the stimulus and the response. In that gap lies your power. That is where real intelligence operates. When you begin to observe instead of react, a shift happens. You start seeing things as they are, not as you fear them to be or wish them to be. A rude comment is just a comment. A challenge is just a situation. They lose the power to disturb your core, because now your attention is not hijacked by external drama. It is anchored in awareness. You respond consciously instead of reacting compulsively. This simple shift can change the entire trajectory of your life. In relationships, this is especially powerful. Most conflicts are not about the actual issue, but about the reactions that come with it. Someone speaks with a certain tone and you react. You raise your voice, they raise theirs, and soon there's a storm. But if you had observed just for a moment, you might have seen the pain behind their anger, the insecurity behind their words. That single moment of observation could have diffused the entire situation. It's not about being passive. It's about being present. Presence has a force that reaction can never have. Even with yourself, reaction creates unnecessary suffering. You make a mistake, and immediately guilt sets in. You fail at something, and shame takes over. These emotional reactions are not helpful, they are heavy. But if you observe, you can see the mistake, understand it, learn from it, and move forward without getting entangled. Observation brings a certain detachment. Not indifference, but clarity. It allows you to see your patterns without getting caught in them. Observation also reveals your conditioning. You start noticing how much of what you do is based on programming, what you've been taught, what you've absorbed unconsciously, from the way you think about success and failure to how you judge yourself and others. It's all a script. Observation is the first step to rewriting that script, because you cannot change what you do not see, and you cannot see if you are always reacting. In spiritual traditions, observation is a doorway to transformation. The practice of watching the breath, observing the mind, being aware of the body, these are not rituals. They are tools to bring you into the present moment. And in the present, reactions lose their grip. You are no longer haunted by the past or anxious about the future. You are here, fully. That presence itself becomes a kind of silent power. This power doesn't come with loud declarations or aggressive moves. It comes quietly. It makes you steady, balanced, unshaken by circumstances. You become like the eye of the storm, still, even when everything around is in motion. From that stillness, your actions carry weight, your words carry truth, your decisions come from depth, not from the surface turbulence. Stillness is not weakness, it is supreme strength. In the world today, stillness is often misunderstood. People associate it with inactivity, with being passive, with lacking ambition or drive, but this misunderstanding comes from a superficial view of life. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the presence of depth. It is a state where your body may be at rest, but your awareness is intense, alert, and alive. There is a strength in that state that no amount of external effort can match. Most people are constantly doing something. There is a deep fear that if they stop moving, if they stop talking, if they stop achieving for even a moment, they will be left behind. They believe that the only way to stay ahead is to keep running. But what they don't realize is that endless motion without direction leads nowhere. It is like running on a treadmill. There is a lot of effort, a lot of sweat, but no real progress. Stillness, on the other hand, is the space from which clear direction emerges. It is only when you are still that you can see things as they are. In the noise of movement and chaos, your vision is clouded, your mind is scattered. Your decisions come from impulse rather than insight. But in stillness, everything settles. Thoughts slow down, emotions become quiet, and a deeper intelligence begins to function. That intelligence does not come from books, from advice, or from external sources. It arises from within, from your own being. In nature, the most powerful things are often the most silent. The sun rises without a sound, yet it gives life to the entire planet. A tree grows in silence, yet it supports entire ecosystems. The mountains stand unmoved, yet their presence is undeniable. Stillness is not weakness. It is a different kind of power, one that doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't shout, but it is heard. It doesn't move, but it influences everything. A still mind is not a dull mind. It is razor sharp, In stillness, you become sensitive to things that you would normally miss. You start noticing the subtleties in your own behavior, in your surroundings, in your relationships. You understand without being told. You see without needing proof. That level of perception is not available to a restless mind. It only opens up when you cultivate stillness. Stillness is also essential for balance. In a world full of extremes where people swing between highs and lows, success and failure, joy and despair, stillness is the ground beneath your feet. It keeps you steady. When good things happen, you remain grounded. When challenges arise, you do not collapse. You carry yourself with dignity, not because you are resisting emotion, but because you are rooted in something deeper than emotion. You are anchored. It is in stillness that healing happens. The body heals faster when it is at rest. The mind heals when it is free from constant chatter. The heart heals when it is allowed to simply be. But healing is not just about repairing what is broken. It is about returning to your natural state of wholeness. And for that, stillness is not optional. It is essential. Stillness also gives you power over your reactions. When you are still inside, you don't get pulled into every situation. You are not shaken by people's opinions or controlled by circumstances. You observe, you understand, and then you choose your response. That freedom to choose rather than be compelled, that is real strength. Most people think strength is in domination, in proving, in winning. But real strength is in knowing you don't need to react to everything. You don't need to fight every battle. You don't need to explain yourself all the time. In silence, in stillness, you come face to face with yourself. There is nothing to distract you, no masks to hide behind. And in that moment of complete honesty, you realize that the strength you were searching for outside was always within. It was hidden beneath the noise, buried under the distractions. Stillness reveals it. Stillness does not mean withdrawal from life. It means participation without agitation. It means engaging with the world from a place of clarity, not chaos. It allows you to move through life with grace, to act with precision, to speak with impact. Because every action that arises from stillness carries a certain weight. It is not hurried. It is not scattered. It is full. When you are still, your presence speaks before your words do. Your energy influences more than your efforts. Your calmness becomes contagious. Others may not understand it. They may even mistake it for aloofness or detachment. But those who have experienced even a glimpse of that stillness within themselves will recognize it instantly. Focusing on yourself is not selfishness. It is self-responsibility. In the world today, the idea of putting yourself first often carries a negative connotation. People think it means you don't care about others, that you are ignoring your duties, that you are living only for yourself. But this is a shallow understanding. True focus on oneself is not about indulgence. It is about taking full responsibility for your own inner state, your own thoughts. It means you stop blaming the world and start working on yourself. When something goes wrong, the first instinct is to look outside. Who is at fault? What went wrong? Who caused this situation? But this way of thinking makes you powerless. It keeps you dependent on others for your happiness, your peace, your stability. When you truly begin to focus on yourself, you shift from blame to awareness. You begin to ask different questions. Not who hurt me, but why does this hurt me? Not why are they like this, but why am I reacting like this? That shift in focus is the beginning of transformation. Focusing on yourself is not isolation, it is integration. It is becoming whole within yourself. Most people are fragmented inside. One part of them wants peace, another part is filled with anger. One part wants love, another part is stuck in fear. These inner contradictions make life confusing, but when you start observing yourself deeply, when you pay attention to your thoughts, your emotions, your patterns, you begin to see the cracks. And when you see them clearly, they start to dissolve. You stop living in conflict with yourself. Self-responsibility is not a burden, it is freedom. Because when you realize that your experience of life is your own creation, you become the master of it. You are no longer a victim of circumstances. Someone may speak harshly to you, but you get to choose how you respond. A challenge may arise, but you get to decide how to meet it. This level of ownership makes you powerful not over others, but over yourself. The more you focus on yourself, the less you are affected by others. Not because you don't care, but but because you are not dependent. You are not seeking constant validation, approval, or applause. You are not chasing attention or running from rejection. You are rooted in yourself. That inner rootedness gives you stability in a world that is always shifting. You are no longer swinging between highs and lows. You carry your own center wherever you go. Focusing on yourself also means taking care of your inner environment. Just as you clean your house and organize your space, your inner space needs care. What kind of thoughts are you entertaining? What kind of emotions are you nurturing? What kind of energy are you holding? These are not small things. They shape your life. A cluttered mind leads to confusion. A heavy heart leads to inertia. But when you pay attention, you begin to cleanse. You let go of what no longer serves you. You stop feeding what drains you. You nourish what uplifts you. When you focus on yourself, you also begin to see where your true strength lies. You realize it's not in controlling others or fixing everything outside. It's in mastering your own reactions, your own mindset, your own inner chemistry. You understand that peace is not something you demand from the world, it's something you cultivate from within. And when that peace becomes your foundation, everything you do is more effective. Your actions come from clarity, not desperation. Your relationships come from completeness, not neediness. This kind of self-focus is the opposite of ego. Ego wants to dominate, to be seen, to be right. True self-focus wants to grow, to understand, to evolve. It is humble, it is curious, it is honest. It is not about saying, I am perfect. It is about saying, there is work to be done and it begins with me. It is about looking in the mirror without fear, because only the one who is willing to face himself can truly be free. When you take full responsibility for your own being, a deep shift happens. You stop waiting for others to change. You stop expecting life to be fair all the time. You realize that your growth, your peace, your purpose, they are your responsibility. And this responsibility is not a burden, it is your power. Because now, you are not reacting to life, you are responding to it, consciously. You are not surviving life, you are shaping it. You are not at the mercy of what happens, you are participating in it fully with awareness. This kind of focus does not separate you from the world, it prepares you to serve it better. Because once you are whole within yourself, you are no longer a source of more confusion or noise. You become a point of clarity, a presence that uplifts without effort. You are not giving to others out of emptiness, but out of fullness. You are not trying to save,